projection.
Howdy, y'all. It's us. It's Taking It Down, the pop culture podcast from analytical Alabama TV loving minds. Yeah, keep playing.
Oh,
We'll
okay.
lower the volume. We'll lower the volume of the soundtrack. This podcast is produced by the site thealabamatate.com, where you can find more writings and podcasts on anything from pro wrestling to books to them damn Star Wars. Yeah, I'm one of your hosts for Taking It Down. My name's Blaine Duncan. I'm happy to be here. Thank you for having me. It's often that I find myself wondering, why do I like what I like? Why do I dislike what I dislike? I put this old English teacher's mind to work to contemplate films, TV, books, and music and how they're put together. Plus, I was once your classic kid who grew up in front of the television set, and I was thrilled to visit the movie theater for entertainment. But my ideas aren't the only set of viewpoints here. With me every week is Adam Morrow, who is an erudite musician with a penchant for literature, Donovan Runwald, a media specialist with encyclopedic knowledge on film and more, as well as Natalie Morrow, the first person to ask about anything Marvel, Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter, Star Wars, Game of Thrones, Beyonce, the list goes on. That's who I'd ask. She's Natalie Morrow. For this week's Taking It Down, we're going to talk about episodes 2 and 3, probably sticking mainly with 3 from House of the Dragon on HBO. Plus, we're going to dole out opinions on the new FX Hulu show The Patient, which stars Steve Carell and Domhnall Gleeson, as well as She-Hulk on Disney Plus. Maybe even a few brief thoughts on the Rings of Power from Amazon Prime. Labor Day's done and gone, so we'll be your buddies to talk about all that nice warm fall TV you're watching now. This is us. Here they are. Let me give them a chance to say hello to you. Right in front of me is someone who drove more miles this week than the Proclaimers. It's Mr. Adam Morrow.
I wonder if I did. No, not 10,000.
500 miles?
Oh, 500. Why did I think
500.
10,000? Yeah, I definitely beat him there.
Okay.
It was great.
Okay. I did the math.
Yeah.
No, I'm kidding. I didn't do the math on it, but I figured. Here's another guy you heard mentioned in the intro. He is someone who's likely lost a huge chunk of his mortgage payment over the weekend. It's Donovan Runwald.
Great to be here, Blaine.
Meanwhile, back at headquarters.
There's always week 2, Don. There's always week 2.
I tell you what, it was there was some good football this week. We got that App State UNC game. That's where I lost all my money.
You should have read my column. I had you covered there. And also, here with us, she's going to really help us with some She-Hulk thoughts. I think that she's going to be very useful there because that's gaining stupid controversy. We'll get there. She's really the best person to call for your upcoming Halloween, Thanksgiving, and Christmas decor. plug. It's Natalie Morrow.
Give me your money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a sincere plug.
The biggest controversy is, did Blaine Duncan watch Rings of Power?
No, I'm still behind on the movies.
What's
I'm
wrong
going to
with
get
you?
there. It's
Why?
my
You don't even have to catch up. This is a great
you don't?
starting point. No.
Really?
Yeah, this is it. Starting
come on,
out.
Nat.
You, for somebody coming in new to knowing nothing, you could start watching Rings of Power and be fine.
Well, that's one of my questions I was going to ask because I read that they set it up so that they want everyone to watch it, obviously. Their audience is everyone. So they set it to where if you've never seen one of those movies, you can just start here. And I was going to ask you guys that, and so that's where we're starting. No, I'm interested in this. We'll be vague and quick because I may jump in with this. How good, not good, thumbs up, thumbs down, and how good was it?
You have not seen the movies, correct?
I've seen the first one.
You've seen the first one, okay.
And chunks of the last one.
What kind of life do you lead?
Buddy, in the early aughts, it was one of drugs and booze and gambling.
and missing the Two Towers completely and seeing only part of the third one.
I mean, middle school was hard for all of us, but it seemed to have hit Blaine much harder.
I'm older than you guys.
It definitely wants you to think about the movies when you see them, which is probably not surprising because those movies are still pretty visually stunning and kind of the high watermark for the series. But the music but you can just, like Natalie said, I do agree. I think you can jump right in. And because it takes place, it's kind of like House of the Dragon. It takes place before So if you know what's going to happen, then there's a kind of like, oh, this is a fun nod. Like, I know who Elrond is or whatever.
L. Ron Hubbard is in this?
Yes.
In a way. I think if what stands between you having the background and not having the background is just watching a few movies, I would say watch the movies.
Okay, yeah, I want to. I want to put in my due diligence and watch those movies in full, but time might be the obvious factor. So is the show good?
Yeah, I think it's good.
Really?
I thought so.
Let's do a 1 out of 10 ranking, because I do want to keep things vague, because I might end up watching it, and if not, I'll let you guys off the leash maybe next week or something, and you could dive into the specifics. But 1 to 10, where would you say the first? What are there 2 episodes out?
There are 2 episodes. Yeah, we watched the first one and are kind of doling it out. Maybe it's like Donovan said, that they really want you to have seen the first ones, and there's all these nods, and even just atmospherically, The Hobbit got so far off the enjoyable things about the original run that they're mimicking their own cinematography, in this, and it looks good, and for it to be truly the first like satisfying return to that world, 22 years later, that may be swaying my opinion of it. Because I was having a blast the whole time. I mean, this is like 8 out of 10 level stuff for me.
Oh,
I think that's about what I'd give it to. The first one, there were some slow parts, right? There's some exposition that didn't move maybe as quickly as it could, but and obviously the cast is going to be huge, because even the first episode introduced. Whenever I pull up my Amazon Prime app, it's got like a primer on like the main characters, and half of the main characters weren't even introduced in this first episode. So that might work against it, but it looks so darn cool.
Every headline I've seen says that.
It had the spirit. You can tell they dropped a ton of money on it. And yeah, I think it had the spirit of, kind of like Adam said, those... And maybe that, I guess some people might think that's a knock against it, but it had the spirit of those movies, or it felt like it had the spirit of those movies.
I think if you have to go into the show, and it's interesting that we're going to talk about Game of Thrones shortly after this, but you have to kind of go into the show accepting Tolkien on his own terms, which I do with open arms. I love it. I mean that because if you just watch Game of Thrones with all this kind of like gritty, like, morality's in this gray area and everybody has some good and bad, and like that kind of approach to the world, you may think that Tolkien is, I don't know, I feel like people think he's not as complex. It just allows for some really beautiful moments that I'll try not to be spoiler, but there's just some moments that are like, man, if you let yourself go there, they're really beautiful, I thought.
I was also going to go 8 out of 10 on this one.
Oh, good.
But I'm going to slightly disagree with Donovan.
Okay.
I mean, visually, I agree that, what they are putting on the screen is beautiful. It looks amazing. It was almost, for me, a little bit of a turnoff that the quality of the picture was so good. And I know that's really dumb, but...
I like that.
But because like, we all got burned by The Hobbit, that it had that kind of like the quality mirrored The Hobbit as opposed to the Lord of the Rings trilogy. So I kind of missed and this is just me being nostalgic and stupid, but like just that kind of like give me like gritty older film quality on this.
I disagree.
Easier to get back in. I know, and I know that I'm wrong. But that's just my opinion.
No,
I still think it's great, and it looks amazing. I
don't think you're wrong at all. I just think that this, to me, struck the balance between the film grittiness and late 90s-ness of the original. And, like, it got so cartoony and slick with The Hobbit. I feel like they pulled back from that. Like, it's obviously still 20 years into the future technologically for us, but it felt like a good balance to me.
Yeah, it's definitely not nearly as bad as The Hobbit.
No, where it looked like that, it had that soap opera feel to it. So when you were watching it,
so they made the mistake of dividing The Hobbit into 3 movies where it should have stayed maybe 1 or 2. Am I right about that?
That's correct.
That's
2 at most, yeah.
Was the first Hobbit movie any good at all, or like was it okay and then just dropped precipitously? What happened with the Hobbit movies?
I think
It was
so.
bad.
I mean, I thought the first one had promise, though, at least. And then
The first one had its moments.
by the end of that one, you're like, oh boy. This is
Yeah,
bad.
that was the problem with The Hobbit, is that last like 30-minute set piece where they're in the cave or wherever. It was like, oh, what has happened? Like this started so good and then it died.
I'll admit I never saw the third Hobbit movie. I was so disappointed by the second one. I was like, I'm not wasting my time or energy on this one. And you know, kind of like reading the reviews, it's like nothing in any of the reviews made me think that I should go out of my way to watch something that was probably just going to disappoint me. It felt, because the
Yeah, it
second
makes
one
sense.
felt so bloated.
Were they as long as the Lord of the Rings movies?
Lord, yes.
What? That seems
Can the boy
that
tell
seems
time?
very-
Oh, God, no.
What is what is Amazon planning for this one? It's rumored to be 5 seasons, or have they said it's 5 seasons? So we'll hope that they don't end up making. I mean, there's a lot of material to work with, but you kind of hope they don't make similar mistakes.
I think they're like playing this very carefully because of how bad The Hobbit went over. Like now they're bringing in all like the Tolkien pros basically and just being like, please let us know that we're on the right track. Like they are, I think they were nervous coming out of the gate, and I think they've gotten some solid reviews from people who are reputable in the Tolkien world, and I think I think they're leaning pretty hard on that, which is hopeful.
such as you.
Yeah, they've
Wicked
called
Lord.
me. Got that screener, you know.
We could easily transition into House of the Dragon here, but I do want to insert something. No more listener of the week. In case you missed it, Adam killed that segment last week.
What?
With his box of Dilly Bars.
Yeah, with his box of Dilly Bars, he ate the end of them. And
Shout out to Bo for making that happen. That was great.
can you recount a story based on that?
I'll start the story. Bo Hicks calls me in the middle of Friday. I'm sitting at work. Phone rings. Bo Hicks. Like, why is Bo calling me? Or I don't know what day of the week this was. I guess it was Tuesday, not Friday.
It was a Tuesday.
And
Yeah.
he says he was in line at the Dairy Queen. He wanted to make sure. He wanted to know. I believe 1, is this going to be funny? Is he going to get the joke? And then 2, can he actually eat a Dilly Bar? And then 5 minutes later, Jeff calls me, asks the same questions. It's like, what is happening? So all day I waited for the picture of Adam with a Dilly Bar.
You welcome a random Bo Hicks phone call. I do.
You do.
But when Jeff calls you, it's just shit has hit the fan.
Bo Hicks on my phone is a 100% answer every time. I don't screen calls of anybody who's contact. If it's not a random number, I'm gonna answer. But Bo is like, I stop what I'm doing and start pacing because this is gonna be good. It's always good.
Yeah, same here. If I can get to it.
Yeah.
Let's instead of listener of the week, no Dilly Bar. That's a summer thing. Adam did kill the segment last week officially. He said let's make it a summer thing, and I think we all agree it sounded good. I do just want to quickly shout out. We won't do this every week, but first week of college football pick'em, I'd be very much in trouble if I didn't point out that it was my wife who won the first week. A lot more games to play though.
Who lost the first week?
You're looking at
Because
him.
it might have been me.
No, someone signed up and didn't make their picks, which always happens. So you can't go by that. So I forget who finished last and actually made picks. So
I was,
can't remember.
You know, I always try and choose one upset of the week, and the Cincinnati Bearcats were my upset team this week, and they kind of let me down a little bit, but old Sam Pittman never does.
You can't argue with cold beer.
You guys, it was me. I'm in last place. Of the people
Oh,
that
no.
made
Oh,
picks,
no.
I'm at the bottom.
Oh no. And here she is.
Where's my Dilly Bar?
Yeah, we ain't promoting it.
Old cold beer.
Let's get back to some TV. The HBO Zeitgeist phenomenon, which is House of the Dragon. We had the benefit of Labor Day, so we're able to record a day later than usual. Lord knows we needed the rest, the extra college football, and the bonus TV time. But so we're not behind this week. How about that? Many listeners, though, I'll tell you, I'll share this. many listeners tell me they come back and listen because they're behind on all their TV. And so they're actually maybe not listening on Tuesday or Wednesday, but they look at the title and figure out when they can watch it. Anyway, all that to say, we're going to talk a little bit about episode 2 of House of the Dragon, a lot of episode 3.
That's good, because I barely remember episode 2.
Yeah, for real. And here may be why. I'll lay this out as a question. They speed through time.
Yes.
Every episode is fast-forwarding a year or two. What do you guys make of that?
Well, they're going to go so far as to even switch actors on us, right? With Rhaenyra and...
Yeah, the 4 young actors are getting... They've already switched one. They switched one of the Valyria kids.
Yeah. I personally have no problem with it. They've done a good job of kind of letting you fill in the blanks about what's happened in between. I think they've done a pretty good job of, without necessarily holding your hands between. I mean, especially with episode 3, where we jump from Viserys wanting to marry Alicent to she's given him a son and has another baby on the way. It's not too hard to see that Rhaenyra feels cast aside, right? That doesn't take a lot of hand holding. So I have, no problem with it. The only thing is Viserys is everyone else seems to be aging a little bit, and he just looks the same. He looks as bad as he did on day 1.
Well, he's missing a couple fingers now, or supposed to. I think the VFX kept in the green screen glove. You're supposed to see him with only 3 fingers, counting his thumb, I think. But they accidentally left that in last night.
Poor...
or in the episode 3.
Did they? Poor Viserys. He's clearly not worthy of the Iron Throne. As much as I love him for his little sculptures.
So, speeding through time, Adam, does it bother you at all?
It doesn't, and I was going to say it feels like a acknowledgement of the shortcomings of the original run. That what frustrated us maybe was how they kind of snapped their fingers in the last season, and a lot happened at a pace that we were not conditioned to accept. It was a show that, if they went from the north all the way down to King's Landing, it took a few episodes, and travel was slow and all this kind of stuff, and now they're able to achieve more story in less time without us kind of rolling our eyes. I think and I don't know, maybe Natalie can speak to the source text if that's how it's working as well, but it seems like a smart choice.
I think it's working. I think it makes sense for them to do it because most of what the story is going to be about is later. Like, we need this information now to set up for the major story that's to come for sure. I do think, it's going to be a bummer to lose the actress, Millie Alcock, I think is her name, who's Rhaenyra.
Yeah.
Real sad to lose. She's so good.
Exactly.
But I don't know that I love what they're doing. I don't think they've given her character. I mean, if you're looking at, 4 or 5 years of growth over 2 episodes, her character arc, it's not quite there to me. To me, it seems like she's still only 3 days after that first episode.
Yeah, that's fair.
It's a little strange, but it'll be sad to lose her as an actress. But I think it all makes sense for them to do it this way.
Very sad. When you first said that, I was shocked. I thought they're really going to cast her aside like that. That's almost a waste of a good actress. But hopefully she'll get in some award-worthy stuff soon because I feel like she could.
I thought episode 3, she got her shot a lot more. And you did actually feel a bit more. She goes from somebody who's kind of being pushed along in the story to somebody with agency. And she played that well. She made me think of... There's been more... I know we're supposed to think of Daenerys when we look at her a little bit. Both visually and how, she looks like Emilia Clarke. That's her name, right?
Yeah.
She is doing that. And the boar scene, the covered in blood. I'm like, oh, this is some Daenerys stuff here, walking in and kind of just staring everybody down. So that was fun.
Robert Baratheon stuff too.
It was. I kind of wondered if it was going to go that direction. Anytime a king goes on a hunt, you kind of have to prepare the body count column for another tick. But there was a lot in the back half of episode 3 of character development with almost no exposition or talking at all that I thought was, looking back on it, was kind of a fun roller coaster as it was happening. And then looking back, I thought, man, that was, they did a lot there. That was great.
In truth, the time jumps going forward are one of the only ways that this is different than the original Game of Thrones. I'm fine with this being Game of Thrones 2.0 because it's good so far. I'm digging it a lot. I'm invested in watching it much like I did that second and third season of the original. I like the complex plots, the cast, the intrigue, how things are dropped in just one line and you're supposed to get it. I'm fine with that shit. But how sold am I on losing some of the development from the fast forwarding? I think it'll be fine overall, especially if they decide to pause and focus maybe over a time period for 4 or 5 episodes. And I think Natalie kind of hints that may be the case, or that may be the only way to tackle some of the text.
I mean, I hope so. Otherwise, there's a huge storyline that we're building up to, and if they surely once we age up all of our characters, then they're going to slow it down and make it more more normally paced show. Hopefully.
This might be neither here nor there in the conversation we're having, but I keep thinking, damn, this show looks great. As well as, damn, that had to take a long time to build, or damn, that had to have been expensive. So
that's funny because I found myself, especially for some of the King's Landing shots, much more like, whoop, that looks like a green screen. Yeah.
Really? Well, I guess the particularly one scene that got me was when they were in what seemed to be a very real forest for the little carnival type setting for the hunt. That all looked real, and I thought, damn, that had to take a while to set up.
No, that stuff all looked fantastic. The first 2 episodes, which were very heavily King's Landing, it felt a little less real to me. This is definitely neither here nor there, but it did feel a little bit more green screeny, and I wonder if it's because they're saving their money for their dragons.
For sure.
Well, what looks less real, the dragons or the pug sitting in that lady's lap? So that took me out of it for a second.
I just was like, there's pugs in this world? Like, this is a fascinating detail.
Yeah. It's almost as bad as a Starbucks cup. I mean, come on.
Blaine was just happy that they were back in the woods walking around. He said that week 1.
That's true.
Oh my god.
I think that was it.
And yet, this is what I don't get. It was like, Blaine's like, oh, there's a lot of walking in the Lord of the Rings, and I'm not sure if I'm down for that. And yet, you're complaining about it when it's not in Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
This is one of those shows where subtitles don't hurt. Do you guys watch with subtitles by chance?
Yes.
At all or ever?
I do watch with subtitles.
Can't do it.
I can't either. I can for the second viewing, which is what I used to do with Deadwood when it first aired. The first time I watched was no subtitles, and then the second time I watched with. And I found that to be very helpful. Here, I imagine it would be because, like I mentioned earlier, they'll drop one tidbit of information in one line of dialogue, and I like that.
Yeah, and it turns out that it's important, 2 episodes later.
Right.
10 years later.
10 years down the road. It's all going to be very important.
Let's talk a little about the crab guy.
Is anybody else thinking about the crab catchers from 30 Rock the whole time?
The
Caught crabs
catcher.
in paradise.
So he's dining well on seafood, but getting a little toasty.
He's been doing it for years too. This guy, the political situation there is something I wish they'd gone a little bit more into, because he's kind of like backed up by some of the free cities, but he's sort of his own thing. I was a little the Viserys talks about not wanting to risk war with the free cities, and then he backs up his brother at the end of it. I want a map, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah, me too. And I'm with you. I'm curious on who's behind it, who's backing him, why.
It's probably not that important in the long run of things, because he's just, he seems like he's just a kind of pirate lord character.
I mean, we got a good proxy war going on. Who doesn't love a proxy war?
Yeah, this is Westeros'
Exactly.
Vietnam.
Yeah, or like I keep thinking about the Falklands or something.
What a great visual metaphor for episode 3 to open with. We got a soldier about to die, claims he's going to be saved by royalty. Could have been saved by royalty, stepped on by royalty.
I gotta say, that whole sequence, I'm thinking this guy's gonna get incinerated in a second. And it wasn't incineration, but Lord, I'd take a good crushing instead of getting eaten to death by crabs. I mean, they truly created a horrific form of death there. So good for them. They always find a new way to just completely make me uncomfortable.
Yeah, the nailing someone to a post and then leaving them there for the crabs. The old
horrible game of Would You Rather, yeah.
the old classic.
Oh, there's no game. That's just decisively crushed to death by a dragon. That sounds awesome. Eaten by crabs? Come on.
Crushed to death versus eaten by crabs is going to win every time.
Saved his family from a sinking battleship.
If you go by sons, Natalie knows more than us other three. The stag signals Rihanna should be queen when she actually sees the white animal, and it was not her father who killed the white animal.
Brutally.
Yeah, pretty brutal. I was happy that was CGI, you know?
Yeah.
Very happy it was noticeably CGI.
Once again, with poor Viserys seems to be like he just can't quite, like he's always like, he can't quite do anything right, can he? Like he can't even kill the stag right.
The reluctant king.
Well, I mean, to be fair, he was in that stage of a hangover where he was probably still pretty drunk. So,
yeah, I did. I was glad that they acknowledged that he was extremely hungover at one point, because there's just
nice touch.
I was waiting for him to just Ralph everywhere when he was getting off the horse.
Yeah.
You know, it would be much better if he'd stuck with old cold beer, because that wine will get you every
It's the
time.
sugar. It's the sugar.
It seems like if, as the hand said, the gods are sending a portent, then Rhaenyra is the one who gets the
Right.
portent, and not her brother, and not Viserys.
Now, we as Game of Thrones watcher know a little about Aegon. Isn't that egg?
There's so many more Aegons to come.
Oh.
Who's to say?
Okay. That's good. That's why you're here. I didn't know.
Yeah, I was also
Egg.
waiting for...
I think we're about 100 years too early for that.
Oh, are we?
Do Targaryens live longer than the average? Is there like
so.
kind of like a Men of the North from Lord of the Rings thing going on, or
These are not Numenorians.
Numenorians? No.
They're not going to live 300 years.
No, this is not that Aegon.
Gotcha. I think the writers wanted Daemon to be on a suicide mission in that last hugely awesome bit of scenery. I don't think it played like that for me, though. I think it played like confident in a way that I'm probably going to get rescued. Something else will happen. It won't be complete and utter suicide mission.
It kind of read to me like that was the plan all along. You know, they kept hinting at it as what's his face is looking for the dragon. Prince, the crab feeder, whatever his name is, Prince Nahar or whatever his name was.
Oh, he had a name?
Yeah, Daemon yelled it out a couple times.
I'll be damned.
It said, "Come face me." I think right at the beginning he's shouting his name. Says, "Come out and fight me." So it didn't necessarily feel like, they had kind of discussed earlier, like who's dumb enough to do this, and it's obviously Prince Daemon.
Well, he's like kind of between a rock and a hard place after getting that letter, right?
Yeah.
Like he has to do something that's like the most charismatic thing that anyone's ever seen, and kind of show why his brother is the lesser man, right? And why his line would be the lesser. And I assume it's all just like a, for lack of a better phrase, a bit of a dick swinging competition that he decisively wins in that final sequence.
Yeah, for sure.
Whereas Viserys can't even kill the heart.
Exactly. Nice contrast there. And Natalie probably can tell me even more, but apparently that last dragon was Sea Smoke, and it's ridden by Lenore Valerian. Am I supposed to know already that Valerians could ride dragons and not just Targaryens?
Yeah, because I mean that's the whole the whole thing, the lore about old Valyria was that they were dragon riders, so that would that would be the family Valyria or whatever, plus the Targaryens. So those are cousins kind of to the Targaryens in a way. So yes, they're all related.
Now, I had thought that
That
they
helps.
had said earlier my family wasn't dragon riders. And that's why the Targaryens are...
Because the wife is Targaryen,
okay.
right?
The wife
The
is a
sons
Gotcha.
have the ability, whereas the father, who is on the small council, does not.
Okay, that
Yeah.
makes more sense. Yeah.
He used to be on the small council, I bet.
Right.
I bet he's not.
Yeah.
He's not a member anymore.
I did think that they're spending, they're spending their money well on their special effects. It was, despite what I was complaining about earlier, like the fight with the dragons and the fight at the end looked really cool.
And did a fine job of building tension. I knew Daemon was going to get saved, but I still was invested.
Yeah, when those arrows started to hit him, it was like, okay, finally. Like,
Yeah.
He's got the plot armor on, but it doesn't deflect arrows. That's nice.
Yeah. But, I suppose I don't know as much as book readers would know. So maybe I should have thought to myself that he could die. But what would be the point of that be? So
we've seen him.
as a narrative
We've seen
point.
him in this season on Game of Thrones at a further point in the narrative, I think. So we know he's safe for at least until then. I don't know it, but I don't know what his ultimate fate's gonna be. He's kind of he seems to like to play with fire a lot.
Were you guys intrigued, or did it get tedious with all of the marriage talk that Rhaenyra has to? We finally saw a Lannister really come to the fore in an episode proposing marriage, and then he'll build the dragon pit and all that. I don't know, that seemed to take up a lot of bandwidth in the episode and had kind of a satisfying conclusion, for a show where dragons are flying around and battles are being staged. I'm not sure that the marriage proposal needed quite as much time as it got. I don't know.
It kind of worked for me because Game of Thrones has always been, part of it is that political intrigue, right? It's all about backroom deals, and you've got the power of your armies, but you've also got the power that comes from forging alliances and stuff like that. And that seemed like it kind of fell right in line with that. And also it kind of is going to be useful for Rhaenyra going forward, with her part of her motivations is she doesn't want to just be like a pawn. She doesn't want to be just married off.
Totally.
Because she wants to be because her father needs a strong alliance for the house.
Say the arc of what happened, the beats of it were fine. It's just maybe I'm nitpicking that it took up a lot of time, but
It got a little redundant.
Yeah, because the arc of her kind of rebelling against being that pawn and then ultimately getting agency over it, but also, is she really? Because her former friend, now the queen, says she has to think she's making her own choice. Is she kind of being put in a controlled lab rat environment to quote unquote make a choice? That whole thing.
I was just gonna say, I mean, if you look at just these last 3 episodes, the main conflict is succession.
Yeah.
So it makes sense
Right.
for this to be a big part of it.
Yeah, absolutely the main conflict, and then you got your Vietnam going on. Look, I'm digging this. I said earlier, if it's Game of Thrones 2.0, I didn't know if I would be happy with it. Turns out I am.
I don't usually watch it Sunday night, so I'll watch it Monday after I get home from work. And so it's become Monday night appointment viewing. Just because I don't know, I'm invested. I want to know what's going to happen. Maybe it's just that Matt Smith is Prince Damon and I like Matt Smith. I want to know what that jerk's going to do next.
Okay, let's take a break and come back and talk a couple more things. This podcast is produced by The Alabama Take, which you can visit by going to thealabamatake.com, as well as follow on all social media where you can be notified of anything new from the site, such as new author Sarah Patterson breaking down why the novel This Is How It Is could break any reader out in tears, and Samantha Simmons' very touching piece on some recent news. Our podcasts, of which you could subscribe to in any podcast app, include Taking On Sports, where your hosts TD and Greg tackle all the news and happenings in sports. Us, Taking It Down, and we appear every Tuesday if you subscribe. Check Your Shelf, soon-to-be favorite book podcast from Jamie Hanna, out on the first Wednesday of every month. That's this coming Wednesday. There's not enough book podcasts, and that's a sincere statement, because sometimes I'll look for one and there aren't any. We hope that you enjoy this one. If you listen to us on Tuesday, the first episode of Check Your Shelf will feature the book The Storyteller from Dave Grohl, and maybe talk about the Taylor Hawkins tribute concert from the weekend. Continuing on, there's This Song Sucks from Josh and Hayden, and a guest on music that does not appeal to their ears. That's going to be out every Thursday, beginning in the late fall. Every Friday, continuing its run, you'll hear superfan Corey and former indie wrestler Patrick tell you what happened and why it likely happened in pro wrestling with Alabama Slam. Lastly, coming later this month, drum roll, we're going to have We're a Star War from three of our most avid Star Wars fans at the Alabama Take. See? This is why you need to follow the Alabama Take on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. All those will be mentioned and you'll get news updates on them. All of them podcasts and other bullshit can be found on the YouTube channel as well. And staff writer Jeremy Satcher keeps killing it each week with reviews of graphic novels every Wednesday. Plus, the AlabamaTake.com is the spot to laugh at the comedy of errors every Friday evening when TD and my betting predictions fail miserably over the course of the weekend. TD going on horrible 0-3 this weekend. I'll have to put that in here. Lastly, visit the site, click on shop, and get yourself something done up real good. I'll tell a quick story while I'm easing out of the break. So Natalie's wearing her done up real good hoodie, and my daughter has the same one in the same color except a t-shirt. She was wearing it yesterday, and a very elderly lady looks down at her and says, "Oh, honey, you're right. You are done up real good." So it was just an amazing moment. Yeah, out of the break, little She-Hulk attorney at law. So this was the one. This is the one that I said to myself, oh, okay, Tatiana Maslany deserves a better show.
Yes.
And I can expand on that, or I can let y'all dissect what's happening.
She is a diamond in the rough, a bright blazing star. She's the fire in the dumpster. Maybe it's not that bad, but
it's getting close. And it only took one episode. It had a couple of redeeming qualities. Well, Natalie, what did you think about episode 3 from She-Hulk?
I think that you guys are expecting too much from this show. I think that if you approach this not as a Marvel, what we're used to with everything being interconnected and all these things meaning something and there's Easter eggs everywhere, and instead look at it as this is just like a 30-minute procedural law show. And Tatiana Maslany is having fun.
Yes, she is. That's really weird because I think it's delivering on the things you said I might be expecting. It delivers on tying into Marvel and having fun and a couple of Easter eggs here and there. What I don't think it delivers on is just being, well, this week. The first two were actually pretty good. But this week specifically, it was just not funny. It was disastrously not funny. And it has nothing to do with the twerking at the end. I know a lot of racists and sexists are up in arms because Megan Thee Stallion made a cameo. I suppose you could call it a cameo. And she was in the law offices with She-Hulk twerking. That was fun. That was actually kind of funny and goofy. That part, I've got no qualms about that at all.
Now that you know that She-Hulk can twerk,
yeah, it's fine. Whatever. That doesn't bother me at all. I mean, message boards online can get so ugly, of course. We know that. And there are plenty of racists and sexists there. That's not my issue. I just want to make sure that's clear. My issue is just I don't think it's funny. I don't think it's supposed to be a little bit of a comedy, I think. And it's not. And they need comedy writers. They need the Always Sunny writers to come in and write a couple episodes.
That's something that I kind of felt from the first episode. I think we talked about that the week that you were off, Blaine. So one of the things that I said was it's billed as a comedy, but the jokes just aren't landing for me. And this week, the breaking the fourth wall didn't really work for me. Every time she did that, it didn't really land. The 8 soulmates joke didn't really land. Even the cameo with Wong just felt like a cameo. It didn't feel like it was in the service of anything more than just like, oh, here's this guy that you like. He's here.
Well, they needed him to explain why Abomination was in the movie, and I accepted that. Beyond it not being funny to me, and some people might find it kind of funny, but her CGI is so stiff and cheap, cartoonish. It's so distracting. Like, we've talked about CGI throughout with both Power, the Rings of Power, which apparently looks fantastic. I trust y'all. House of the Dragon, which looks most of the time really, really good. And then we have this, which is, it's so unrealistic and bad. It makes me wish that she would never turn into a Hulk and just be Tatiana Maslany interacting with people. And it would be so good.
Have you seen any of the, there's some behind the scenes photos that are kind of going around right now? Because you don't think about, or I don't think about when she's in the She-Hulk character, that she is still there. Tatiana Maslany is still present and acting those scenes, but with like the outfit, like all the cameras and all the shit, and the onesie. So just to like imagine her in the room, like it's very strange.
It's a bit sad,
but to see
right?
and there are photos of her like with Megan Thee Stallion doing the twerking scene. It's like, okay, Tatiana Maslany looks precious doing this, and then She-Hulk looks like a robot.
Exactly.
Yeah, that was, if there's any issue that I have with the twerking scene, it's that it was She-Hulk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Doing it, because it's like, oh, this just looks weird and unnatural. It's
So
Uncanny
unnatural.
Valley.
So unnatural. When Bruce Banner as Hulk moves his neck, he doesn't move his whole body like he's in a brace. Weird. But I did have issue with the episode itself. I thought the B plot, which is acknowledged by Jen Walters in character with the fourth wall breaking, I found the B plot to be kind of not that interesting, not very good. And it doesn't have to tie into the MCU. My idea was they were going for something comedic, and the elf-ish lady in the form of other characters I found to be rather annoying than kind of funny than amusing. It was almost slapstick in a world where there's just not a lot of slapstick so far, fell flat. Maslany does break the fourth wall again. I thought that was fine. Donovan said it wasn't nearly as good as previous ones. I think that's an okay goofiness to the show, but yeah.
I think it's never entirely worked for me throughout the whole. And I don't know why. Maybe I am expecting too much. But for some reason, that every time she does it, it just grates on me.
Yeah, I've accepted that it wants to be a comedy, and I really wish it could be.
It is interesting because it's not sure who its audience is with its jokes.
That's it.
Like, some of them are very like, this is cued to like younger audiences, and then others, like that first episode, was like very mature. It just doesn't know who its audience is.
No, that's so perfect. That is so perfect. That's it right there. And as soon as they figure that out, and it might be another season, or it might be her own movie or something. As soon as they figure it out, I think it'll work. Because they got the ingredients, they're just not cooked.
It'll be interesting once they bring in, so like, we know the main villain has only been in 5 seconds of the first episode.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So once she gets introduced, I think that hopefully will give us a little bit more identity of what this show is. And I think that's supposed to happen towards maybe this next episode, hopefully. But maybe that'll change some things.
It'll be interesting also to see how Charlie Cox plays. His Daredevil was so serious and brooding. That's going to be a clash. In a good way or a bad way. Sometimes those clashes can be very funny, but we'll see.
Like you said, we'll see.
Yeah, I'm appreciative of the weaving in and out of the MCU. That part, at least, has me quite hooked, honestly. Let's shift gears into the final segment of today, and that's going to be talking about the FX Hulu show, The Patient. It stars Steve Carell as a psychologist who is treating the odd character played by Domhnall Gleeson. And Gleeson's character simply takes Carell, kidnaps him. That's about all you need to know going in. What we'll do is we'll keep our thoughts really wide for a second, and then a couple of minutes in we'll spoil and let you know, because this is a show that does have spoilers. Donovan, you and I, the only two having watched. I really appreciate that this show gives drama in 20-minute increments. This sort of thing, it began with FX years ago, right? With, 12 years ago, 14 years ago, with Louie being a comedy that just had a ton of drama on its back there. Mm-hmm. What's gained and lost when you do drama in 25-minute segments?
I've been thinking about that. You kind of brought that up via text, and I've been thinking about that ever since. And I wonder if you gain something with there's a tightness that has to come when you only have 20 minutes to tell your story, whether that's the tightness that comes from writing or editing. What's lost, I think, is your story. Maybe sometimes your story can become a little bit more choppy, especially with the drama when we're used to having the whole hour kind of let things unfold. I did feel a little bit this not a spoiler, but the ending of episode 2. I almost felt like, I wish this was an hour, because there's a mild cliffhanger ending.
Yeah.
And if it was an hour drama, we'd probably get the resolution of that cliffhanger, or it would have been, or the flip side of that is, if it had been an hour drama, that cliffhanger would have been just put off and put off and put off.
Yeah, and you lose that really deep character study type of stuff, which I think is what Gleeson's character, whose name is Sam, really needs. I do think the show's really good, and it's worth watching. Let's go ahead and talk spoilers here, because the one and only issue I have is with the way Gleeson's playing. He's playing this... Okay, here comes spoilers, in case you haven't. He's playing a serial killer, and he's playing it much less scary than maybe he should. It's almost as if he's more quirky than...
You think so?
I think so. That's my read on it. Yeah.
So there's no menace for you.
None to me. And you?
I don't think I read him as being quirky. More like he's... I don't know. He's done this thing, right? Like, he's kidnapped Steve Carell, who's his therapist, who he wants help. He wants help getting better. He wants to not be a serial killer anymore.
That's right.
Just the whole, like, it seems like there's something kind of... How it read to me was that there's something kind of seething under the surface with him.
Uh-huh.
And
but I don't feel that Steve Carell, his character, Dr. Strauss, is ever in danger around Gleeson. Maybe he's not supposed to feel in danger. Maybe that's not who we should be worried about, but just the people that Sam's interacting with outside of the room.
I think at this moment, and there are 2 characters in this show, which is kind of... Yeah. For the first 2 episodes that have come out, there are really only 2 characters.
It's like a play.
It is like a play. I was thinking that. I don't think we're supposed to feel that he is yet in danger from Sam. Now, how that's going to go, because Sam is still trying to be conciliatory and make this thing work, right? Like, he's trying to
be inviting to a degree.
Exactly, despite having kidnapped Steve Carell's character, chained to the floor. He's put out, but he's done things like he's put out everything he thinks he will need. He gets him new food. Apparently, he's like a health inspector or something.
That's right.
So he gets him new food every night. So I think for those first 2 episodes, where the initial menace is not... Well, I mean, there's an undeniable level of menace just from him having kidnapped him. But I think that it's not there yet. Now, I don't know if it's going to go that way or not.
Yeah.
But I think I'm actually pretty happy with the way both men are playing their characters. Steve Carell is nice and understated.
Steve Carell's doing a very understated performance, and I'm digging it. Gleeson's hasn't been sold to me yet.
I'm there with him where he's playing. There were some of the scenes where he's like trying to open up more about being a serial killer. I felt like he was playing him with someone who's going on with more going on beneath the surface than he's trying to unlock. And I have actually been I thought his performance was actually really good.
Both of us having really enjoyed The Americans. These are the same showrunners, Joel Fields and Joe Weisberg. I trust these showrunners to have Gleeson in the role and have him playing it more calm or less intense than maybe I expected. I have faith that that's a purposeful choice. It just has me a little bit distracted is all.
Okay.
You know, the only thing he's shown us that he's a serial killer is this box of watches. I'm not so sure I wouldn't have a tidbit of him. This is going to be morbid, but a tidbit of him committing a crime.
And I wonder if we're going to get that as the show goes on, just because it is such, this show kind of made me wonder, where does it go?
Yes.
And I trust the showrunner. The Americans was great. They obviously know how to make a great series, but also it's kind of like, it has to go beyond just 30, or however many episodes it's going to be.
10 for the
10
first
episodes of him being chained to a bed and them talking. I would assume maybe they're really going to do something daring, and it's going to be.
Yeah, they probably will. With the Americans, their daring moments were still subdued in a way. It was character in a way. But yeah, Gleeson and the writers especially have thrown out the usual bits about serial killers we've come to expect. And maybe it's just my relying on those archetypes that are causing my hindrances. I know that we have a lot of opportunities with Mindhunter and Blackbird to soak in those archetypes, but I kind of want to see it here or there with the character. Now, all of this is to say that it sounds like I don't like the show. No. I love this show. I'm quite interested. It's short, it's sweet, it's to the point. Carell's doing excellent work. Gleeson's doing really good work. I think it may be in the writing where I want something to give me danger.
I see. What's your favorite thing about the show so far?
I think it's how poignant it is.
Yeah.
As far as getting across its narrative, giving you the story. It's this happens and then this happens, while still maintaining a sense of things to infer, still maintaining that level, a bit of depth. For example, when Sam just chugs the hell out of coffee and then gets up to piss, it's like we have this whole, in 22 minutes time, they devote a whole 30 seconds to a minute of him just pissing in the other room.
Yeah. That was.
What about you? What are you digging? I think you like it too, right?
I do like it. Honestly, I think right now I'm digging their performances.
Yeah.
I think both of them are doing. I'm a little bit more sold on Gleeson's performance than you are, I think.
A little bit.
And the two of them, and I'm really sold so far. I mean, we'll see what he does. But Steve Carell, I think, is actually a pretty good actor, especially when he puts his mind to it.
I think so too.
And he's playing this kind of grief-stricken person who's put into this weird, impossible situation, and I think he's doing it in a really, I don't know a word to use other than understated, but he's doing it in a really understated kind of
he's kind of measured.
That makes it, and so far his performance has been really, I think, interesting and worth watching. I mean, we're only 2 episodes in, so who knows how it's going to go.
Sure.
But it's been so focused on just those 2 characters. And even more than that, Steve Carell is in it more than Gleeson is. Mm-hmm. So a lot of the show so far has really been on his shoulders. Mm-hmm. And I think he's been able to carry it.
Yeah, he plays a psychologist well. I believe him in that role.
Which is weird because you if you said Steve Carell plays a psychologist, that's not necessarily my first thought. It's like, oh yeah, that makes sense.
Really? I thought it was a good and clear idea there.
But it's working for him.
Other than the bathroom scene being a bit of something you might want to infer, there's also these 2 moments in episode 1 that are frankly scary. And it has nothing to do with Gleeson, but Carell's past, it seems, or these dreams he has.
Oh, those dreams were creepy.
They were very creepy. A horror show or horror movie creepy level. And they're almost out of the blue a little. But I like those choices.
It seems to have something to do with the death of his wife, the dreams that he's having. But the one with the woman in the bed clutching the neck of the guitar,
yes,
was upsetting.
Yes. Is it certain she's dead? She's gone in some way. There's speculation that she might be the lady on the stairs.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there's some speculation. That's probably the easiest guess to make, and maybe that's who that is carrying the fireplace.
The poker.
Mm-hmm.
It seemed to me that she was gone, or dead. But
okay. Yeah,
definitely
that's the way they want
gone
you to read
in some way. Yeah, and I could be completely wrong about that, because obviously there's some, we're probably going to get a little bit more of his family dynamics, like he's got something going on with his son.
Yes.
That we're not.
What do you
100%.
make of that, Ezra, his son?
I don't know what to make of it yet. There's not enough there yet. So
Sure.
We'll have to see. I think we're gonna just have to see how it ties into the larger story. I mean, I'm fine with it.
Going to be very complex if it turns out that they're angry at him for religious reasons, which might be the case here.
Yeah, it seems like he was, and this is just guessing, but they say he's rebelling, and then he goes into the shop where he works, and his son's wearing the yarmulke, and he doesn't wear the yarmulke.
Right, more orthodox.
Yeah, so there may be something going on there.
This show's got some promise. It may be a one-season show and done, but that's not the kind of show that I know Fields and Weisberg to do. So, but I don't see how it could venture past 1 or 2 seasons.
That was kind of my question with where does this show go? Unless it has a radical, and it could, a radical difference from its initial premise,
Yeah. But, I mean, if you would have asked me how long spies can stay hidden in America, I wouldn't have said 5 seasons or however long it lasted.
I think it was 6, wasn't it?
It might have been
6. That show had drastic shifts in the status quo while still kind of staying the same show. But, you had like Paige telling Pastor Tim about her parents and things like that. Stuff like that. Where it is kind of like they weren't afraid to have everything. Martha being exposed or her whole thing where she has to get sent over to Russia.
Right.
So they're clearly not afraid to do moments that change a whole series,
Yeah.
So we could see.
Yeah, I really like that they're messing around with 25-minute shows, 30-minute shows now. So it's really cool. What we'll do is we'll return to you next Tuesday. We might have roped Natalie and Adam into discussion about The Patient. They may have roped me into picking up with the Amazon Prime show. So we'll see. Next week, lots of promise awaits.